And now the weather. Well, in fact, the Jersey Tourist Board is complaining that the BBC doesn't say, and now the weather, for them often enough. In fact, they get left off the map completely. And when they do get the occasional look in, the reports are inaccurate. They say holidaymakers are being put off booking weekend impulse breaks, and it's costing the local economy. I asked David de Carteret from the Jersey Tourist Board why he's so concerned.
The issue really these days is that so many people book their holidays at the very last minute, perhaps 2 or 3 days before they go, and there's such a focus on weather that if the weather isn't properly reported, that we're likely to just simply lose business. And many of our visitors, perhaps 30%, as many as 30%, book within a week or 2 weeks of travel, and people are very keen to look at the weather forecast and see what's going on in a place like Jersey before they decide to book.
Is that really true, though? Because we're British, we know the weather is unpredictable.
We do, and I think we fully accept that. And not everybody that comes to Jersey will come there because it's blazing sunshine, of course. But weather, I think, still is a very important part of people's holiday experience. And we know that bookings increase when the weather is good.
And do you find that the information given out is just inaccurate, or is it worse than that?
It's not just inaccurate. We always, if it was inaccurate and we were getting better weather forecasting than the reality, we'd probably be very pleased with that. But of course, it's the opposite, and we're usually undervalued on temperatures. And so often, the Channel Islands are just left off weather maps altogether, and a lot of people feel very, very unhappy about that.
Well, certainly this morning we've looked at all the papers, and you're not in any of the maps that we looked at. But you are on the BBC website. I'm looking at it now, and I can see both Jersey and Guernsey, and just they are specks, admittedly, by the French coast there. And what about the national weather forecast compared with the local weather forecast? Because on Radio Jersey's website it says bright and sunny, 22 degrees, and I've rung them up, and it is.
Well, that's good news. Yes, it is these temperature values that's causing us the problem, and I suspect that one of the reasons why they're so often wrong is that the computerized systems are looking at a large region, so they're probably taking the sea temperature as opposed to the land temperature. There's probably a very good reason. I don't think anybody's setting out to actually do us down. Nevertheless, the overall result is that we're not getting the temperature values that we really should be getting.
But doesn't Jersey have its own meteorological office?
We do, and they're very frustrated too. I spoke to the chief Met officer only the other day because this issue was coming up, and he's very frustrated because very often they put their forecasting into the national system, and it doesn't, for some reason, it gets changed before the broadcasts are made.
Where do you want to see the change happen? Is it in Jersey and Guernsey and the other Channel Islands featuring more on maps, or is it actually changing the way the temperature scales are done?
I think it's both of those things, really. I think we're not looking for anything that we don't deserve. We're really just looking for accuracy in terms of the value and the weather forecasts that are going out, and just to be featured a little bit more often, particularly on the broadcast media, on TV and so on, where so often we see the national maps on the weather broadcasts, and the Channel Islands are simply just missed off. So we really want to be there. We feel that we're paying our licence fees and so on like everybody else is, and so therefore we feel as though we ought to be properly featured.
But what you're saying, this isn't a criticism of the Met Office itself, the UK Met Office. This is the way it's reported and the information that is regarded as important. It's
actually very difficult to get to the bottom of it. We've tried very hard. We know that when the information leaves Jersey, the Jersey Met Office, it's correct, but somehow when it goes through the great system, whether that's the Met Office or when it gets to the broadcast people themselves, it somehow becomes undervalued. So somewhere along the line the system is going wrong, and as hard as we've tried, we've not been able to get to the bottom of it.
We've contacted the BBC about this, and they've sent us a statement, and it says the Channel Islands are clearly visible on the UK-wide weather map used in all network BBC weather forecasts, and when the weather's significant we do have the option to zoom in to the Channel Islands as we sweep across the map. And they say we always welcome audience feedback, and we endeavour to be as inclusive as possible with our weather forecasts, and we're confident we're using the best source of forecast data which we get from the Met Office. So how would you respond to that?
Well, I think that is correct, but of course it's a question of how often the zooming in takes place, isn't it? Our research tells us that it's very seldom that actually happens, and so whilst it can happen, and I'm sure it does happen from time to time, we don't think it happens often enough.
David de Carteret from the Jersey Tourist Board, where it really is bright, sunny and 22 degrees.